Hi everyone, this is Priya from It's Okay Yaar and welcome back to our series, The Immigrant Career Corner. The topic for today is the differences between the Indian work culture and the Western work culture. And the idea behind creating this video is to help you seamlessly transition into the Western workforce without having for you to navigate the cultural nuances that I had to personally go through and took me a long time to figure out. Hi, this is Priya from It's Okay Yaar, and if you're new today, It's Okay Yaar is a content platform for South Asian immigrants, and we aim to educate, entertain, and empower them. Okay, so the workplace culture varies very much in India versus the US, and I can say this because I worked for Google in India and I'm working for Google here in New York. However, even though it's the same company, the way the culture was extremely different, and it took me a while to kind of ease into the way of doing work here. The same goes with Darshan, who was actually working as a producer with Sony Pictures in India, and then when he came here, he had to go through that entire job search process, start with different startups, then go into Google, then start a contracting role, and now he's with Indeed. So we have really experienced a lot of different things about different companies, different organizations, and different work cultures. And in this video, we want to distill and make it extremely easy for you to transition if you are entering the workforce here or you're transitioning into a new job. The number one biggest thing for me was personally building rapport. So this is extremely important, and some people call it as small talk. However, this is extremely important when you are trying to strike conversations in the US, and you will notice that when you are beginning work. Basically, when you're starting a conversation, you have to say a couple of things to establish rapport, and in most cases is like not that people are really interested and they want to really know about your weekend or they really care about the weather, but it's important to ease into a conversation before you deep dive into the topic. However, in India, it's very natural for us to like go into a meeting and then straight dive into the topic, and if we have some extra time remaining, then we might catch up, but here you have to kind of ease into that. So it's important to make yourself familiar with a couple of things that you're comfortable speaking about, and it could be something like what happened over the weekend, or what is the weather like, your favorite sports team, a favorite show that you're watching on Netflix, just something super easy and simple that comes authentically to you. The number one piece is the communication style. The US communication style is actually very direct and decisive, and people are very comfortable asking clarifying questions so that they don't have to go back and forth on the topic. However, back in India, we are very used to saying yes even when we don't fully understand what the ask is, because we fear that we might come across as ignorant. I'm actually going to give you an example, and this used to happen a lot with my colleagues when I was back in India and working there as well. Honestly, this might sound a little harsh, but at some point I started having some issues because I was too direct with my communication style in India, and I think people just expect you to be like nicer rather than being comfortable asking those direct questions. Since I have moved to the US, and when I talk to my India counterparts and I collaborate with them, I actually encourage asking as much clarifying question as possible, and I also call out the fact that asking questions does not mean that people are going to think that you don't really understand the topic. In fact, it will reduce the back and forth. So if you need something specific, please feel free to be comfortable making that ask. So if you worked for a long time in India and then you're transitioning into the US, please remember that if you are more direct, if you're more assertive, if you exactly know what you want, you will excel much faster and you will be more appreciated for your style rather than saying yes to things and not fully understanding what the deliverable is. And I just want to add a dimension about this cultural nuance. The reason why a lot of Indians are that way is because our culture is very top down. Like, we have grown up obeying the orders of our elders, and that comes from a lot of respect, where we are generally trained to say yes to someone who is more senior to us. However, in the US, if you notice, culturally, from a very young age, the child is encouraged to make these decisions or take take these calls. So it's just very much something that just happens in the workplace as well, and it's very natural. However, again, my idea is not to point fingers at a particular culture, but this is just something that is good to know when you're transitioning, so that it's easy for you to mingle into the workforce and you don't struggle navigating these cultural nuances. The next one is decision-making style. Here in the US, the decisions are made very fast, and generally, depending upon the kind of role you are doing, you have a lot of autonomy to make those decisions, and you have a very good understanding of what calls you can take and where you need to have a more collaborative and consultative approach. However, in India, a lot of the decisions that can be made are only through consultation, and we will have these multiple discussions to make sure that we are coming on the same page. It slows down the process and it creates a lot of inefficiencies actually, and that is not something that you will notice in the US. So here, generally you will not be taking directions from someone to execute a task. Here you will have the decision making power, where if you think this is the right thing for the business, you have that kind of authority to go ahead and do the task. Again, this might vary from the kind of job you are doing, the kind of role you are in, the kind of level that you are operating at, but something to keep in mind that the decision-making process is much faster and there is a lot more autonomy that exists. Again, what I mentioned here is something that you will notice in most of the roles. However, to be honest, there are times in the US also where there are too many stakeholders in a project and we are constantly over communicating and trying to bring everyone on the same page, and it slows down the process. So again, my idea of covering this is not to talk about or generalize the fact that this is how decisions are made in the US or in India. However, there is a high chance that when you start an organization, you will notice that there is a different kind of autonomy that exists with your role, and you are able to move things along much faster than you were able to do back home. The next one is regarding time management. Like the US goals are very short term and they're focused on getting the tasks done and moving along very, very quickly. India, on the other hand, generally takes a more long term view when the tasks are done very, very thoroughly. And that again is not like something that I'm saying that you should not be doing or not having that long-term approach, but there are, in most of the cases, the work is very, very broken down in the US. So in India, maybe as a marketing person, you were handling like 25 different work streams. There is a high chance that the same marketing function here is broken into 25 work streams and you are managing only that one work stream. So yes, then it makes it very easy for you to just focus on that one thing, focus on that short-term deadline and move it along. So that is something that you will notice here, that it's very, very broken down, and unfortunately that's also the reason why layoffs are so much easy to execute here, because you generally in a big organization own such a small part of anything that you're very, very dispensable and you don't really need, and anyone else can actually come and do that job because it's not codependent or interdependent on a lot of other things. So something to keep in mind as you're transitioning into the work culture here. The next one is just valuing your time and being super efficient. In the US, people work 9 to 5 and they will try to cram as many tasks as possible and will try to make their workday very, very efficient. So it's very common to have a working lunch or take like a quick 10-minute break to have lunch, because they want to make sure that they are able to leave sharp at 5 and focus on their personal life. In India, however, since we have a community way of living and we care a lot about these relationships, it's very natural for us to take like really long lunch breaks and then other different kinds of tea breaks throughout the day, and we are very comfortable like staying long at work or even working over the weekends if required, because work is a big part of how we live our life. However, here personal life and personal time is much more prioritized. So that is a huge difference you will notice, and when you're coming from India, you might suddenly feel like you have that work-life balance that now exists that you did not have back in India. But here, you know, you have to get your chores done after work, you're like responsible for taking care of the daily tasks, so it's important to draw those boundaries and guidelines. However, once you stay in the US for a long time and get exposure to a lot of other Western working cultures, you will notice that US workers are actually very, very overworked. When you compare your work style here with a lot of your European work colleagues, you will understand the kind of leaves, the kind of luxury, the kind of work-life balance they have is very, very far away from what the American worker experiences. And that's when you will really start to unpack that when you came from India to US, you thought you had work-life balance, but now that you live in the West and you get exposure to other cultures, American work culture actually does not give you that much control of your time that you should be getting when you're in a developed country. Another piece I want to talk about is the colleague relationship. Like in India, it's very natural for us to become very, very friendly with our colleagues, and that's just our way of working because we spend so much of our time at work that just in terms of how our relationship is with our colleague, we will go above and beyond, or we might not have that many boundaries, or we might find it really hard to say no when a colleague is pushing a lot of their tasks on us. Here, however, you can be extremely friendly with your colleagues, you can have a great time outside of work and have that rapport. However, things are very, very professional while they are at the workplace. It's totally fine to have a great relationship with someone, but say no to a task that you don't think falls in your boundary or in your scope of work. So it's very comfortable to do that, and no one really gets offended. We are yet to reach that sort of professionalism in India, I would say. However, here I actually respect that, where you can have a great relationship with the colleagues, but it's totally fine to have a direct conversation and say that no, this is not something that I cover, or it's not something that I have allocated my time towards. I think the last one is going to be the relationship with your manager that you're going to have here. In a lot of organizations, like, managers actually play a really crucial role in terms of helping you advance your careers or helping you find that next opportunity within that organization, be it promotion, being it higher salary, or things like that. The same piece exists in India as well. However, in India, the relationship is very top down, or is still that hierarchy driven, where you have to take permission of your manager before you're doing something. If you're constantly leaving work before your manager leaves, then it's something that will be frowned upon, even if they are not calling it out directly. Things like that don't matter here. Like, as long as you're doing your work and as long as things are very productive, no one really cares. The manager generally is really focused on your well-being and development, and you can have a very open conversation with your manager in terms of your career goals and where you're looking to be. In India, however, you have to have that strike balance. Like, you have to find that balance. Again, like, when I'm saying this, I don't want to generalize it because everyone's situation can be different. I definitely have had bad managers both in the US and in India, and I have had good managers both in India and US, and they operate very differently. But generally, establishing that rapport with your manager and understanding the kind of person that they are will help you settle into the workforce very, very easily in the US. So we wanted to make sure that we cover that topic. I hope this gives you a sneak peek and helps you bridge the gap between the Indian work culture and the US work culture. Again, the idea behind this video is not to say one is better over the other. There are just a lot of cultural nuances, and none of this can be generalized because your situation can look very different depending upon a startup, a big corporation, or anywhere else that you're working. But hopefully, if you would like us to cover a particular topic, or if there is a particular situation that you are dealing with, please leave that in comments. I am happy to help answer and help you navigate your situation based on my experience working in the US and Darshan's experience also working through multiple organizations in the US. Again, if there are certain topics you'd like us to cover, leave that in the comment as well, and would love to make videos accordingly. And hope you're enjoying our series Immigrant Career Corner. If you are, please like, share and subscribe. And if things are not going your way, remember, it's okay, Yaar, and things eventually will turn around.